It is time for Dock Tank Summer Episode 4. For this episode, we will be returning to Big City Port to focus on the number 2 of the Dockyard Railroad, Little Owl. Little Owl is arguably the most overlooked character in all of Tugs, as he has no speaking lines and his only notable appearance was in High Tide, where he slid into Lord Stinker's mouth, if you call it that, from a collapsed bridge. Aside from a few brief background appearances, Little Owl didn't do much at all in the spotlight compared to Puffa. Puffa was the engine that got more focus. Despite this, I actually quite like Little Owl as a character. I find his design pretty unique, and has a good amount of potential in it as well. Hence why he is a character in the Porterverse. So without further ado, let's get into the backstory of Little Owl. Little Owl was built in 1910 as the Dockyard Railroad's number 2. He is an 060 switcher tank engine designed for shunting duties, and to assist Puffa along the Big City Port. He rarely ever left the dockyard, and would often catch rides on the rail barges at other parts of the dock to save time. Little Owl would often be the first to welcome new arrivals on most occasions, since he was at the docks the most often. The first new engine arrival he would welcome to the Big City Port was none other than Porter. The 3 engines were shunted at the Big City Port dockyard for many years. Little Owl's life remained unchanged when Porter left for war service, although he was rather sad to see him go. He would continue shunting duties at the Big City Port while new engines arrived over time. He was a key figure in fighting the fires at the munitions dock fire of 1948. While also helping in a handful of other incidences as well. In 1955, diesels began appearing on the railroad. Like most of the other steam engines, Little Owl didn't mind them all that much, but did know what their presence meant: eventual retirement. Somehow, someway, no one really knows how, but just somehow, Little Owl was one of the last steam engines in service on the Dockyard Railroad, being withdrawn in 1965. If you're wondering what happened in 1965 that caused withdrawal, well, what would later be referred to as the High Tide Bridge Collapse, this will ultimately kill steam on the Dockyard Railroad. A group of passing tugboats were involved in a bridge collapsing, which saw Little Owl, who happened to be passing by at that very moment, slide down the bridge. Thankfully not into the river, as one of the tugboats used an empty barge to catch him. But the rest of the freight train and its cargo was lost, unfortunately. Little Owl was towed back to dry land and was officially withdrawn from regular service. He didn't have to worry about scrap for long, though, as he was donated to the Big City Transportation Museum. He, along with Puffa, were some of the first vehicles acquired by the museum. After some brief cosmetic touch-ups, Little Owl was put on display next to Puffa, and he would be operational until 1976, when he became solely a static display. In 1993, Little Owl and Puffa were relocated to a new section of the museum, known as the docking area. This is a dedicated section for anything related to the Big City Port itself. A handful of small barges, shunting engines, flags, ship belts, and loads of other artifacts are kept here. Think similar to how the Smithsonian Museum looks, with their steam engines. This is where you can find Little Owl today. Little Owl is more of an introvert compared to most engines. He usually prefers being by himself, although he does have a chat with the boxcars and coaches of the port, even the preserved ones today. He, of course, got along well with Puffa, and still does. After all, it was just the 2 of them against the world for a good bit. He also got along with Dockyard Railroad engines 3, 5, and 6 through 10. He also does get a bit shy at times, however, but warms up to others pretty quickly. On the other side of the coin, Little Owl is quick to call out bullshit. He is not stand for bullshit in the slightest. Little Owl is known for calling out fake and shitty visitors at the museum. He's even helped solve a few abuse cases with his observations. Little Owl is very known for helping people out. Like Puffa, Little Owl also answers questions about the whereabouts of certain engines from the Big City Railroad. Overall, Little Owl is more of an introvert, but is quick to helping others when needed, and does not stand for bullshit. Now that we've covered his character, let's dive into Little Owl's model. I don't have any of his progress photos saved, unfortunately, but Little Owl was made from an old 060 model I found on eBay. I deadass have no idea what brand this is at all. All I know is that it runs pretty well and it suits him pretty well, so can't really complain. It was originally completed in 2022, but at some point down the line, around 2023 or late 2022 I believe, I decided to redo the finish. I removed all the old paint and then resprayed the body in a flat black. I then redid the lining in yellow. I also painted the caps of the pistons. I don't know what those are called on the ends, but those were surprisingly difficult. Well, specifically to try and get it back into work. I then glued on new buffer beams and buffers. I imagine this is what his 1930s condition is like, which is how he's also preserved today. When I rebuild Puffa, I'll likely make him in his 1890s condition. Who knows though, but stay tuned for that, I guess. And that's just Little Owl's model. Pretty simple, yet effective. So that was Little Owl. Not exactly the longest or most in-depth backstory, but a fairly rich one nonetheless, I must say. With the covering of Little Owl, we are effectively entering the second half of the Dark Tank Summer event. There will be 2 more episodes covering Porter vs. Dark Tanks, and then a collab special that will follow in the series. The collab in question will cover different lore from the Porterverse, but it'll be pretty fun one nonetheless. I am pretty excited for it. Following that will likely be a Porterverse Workbench episode. I am pretty excited actually to show you some of the new models I've been working on. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I just finished and revealed my James model, so I'm thinking I might make the next episode of that model. Pretty fitting for the number 5 engine to be covered in episode 5 of Porterverse Workbench Season 3, right? What better engine? Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Dark Tank Summer, and I shall see you all same time next week.